Thank you very much. My apologies to everyone for the slight delay in start. We had an committee meeting that went right up to the limit, time limit, and a little transitional time was required. So it's now 10:02 a.m., and I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, 20 February 2022. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Starting with Director Arnold.
Here.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Here.
Director Giudice.
Here.
Director Grosball.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Maston.
Here.
Director Melgar.
Here.
Thank you. Director Parr. Director Parr.
I'm sorry. I was on mute. Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rabbit.
Here.
Thank you. Director Rodoni.
Present.
Director Snyder.
Here.
Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Thier.
Present.
Second Vice President Hill.
Here.
First Vice President Cochran.
Here.
And President Theriault.
Here.
Thank you. I'm going to circle back. I believe Director Stephanie, you've joined us?
Here. Yes, sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you very much. You have a quorum. There are 16 members. I'm going to confirm staff. Dennis Mulligan.
Present.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
Ava Bauer-Furbish.
Present.
Madeline Chun.
Present.
Thank you. Dave Rivera.
Good morning, Present.
Mona Babauta.
Present.
Jim Swindler.
Present.
And Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Great. Thank you. That confirms staff on the line.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you to everyone for joining us this morning, and thanks again for your patience as we conduct our business in this remote manner. I'll ask board members if they have any comments or questions on the various agenda items. If there are questions, the Secretary or I will call on you accordingly. Following any discussion, we will take the appropriate roll call vote. If you are not speaking, please mute your phones to minimize the noise on today's call, and remember to unmute and identify yourself when you are speaking. Please note the board agenda was revised and reposted to the web on Tuesday, 22nd February to add an item relative to the ratification of a memorandum of understanding with the bus operators. With the exception of the revised agenda, please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. Director Melgar, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, President Theriault. If you could all stand and put your right hand over your heart and recite with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Melgar, for leading us in that cacophony. Before we move on to public comment under item 4, Madam Secretary, how many callers do we have on the line today who may be speaking under public comment?
Thank you. As of now, we have 6 speakers. So there might have been a few people who joined the line after we just did our introduction, but we'll leave that to Justine to determine whether or not she wants to pull the public line again. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'm going to ask Justine to introduce the public comment speakers. So if you're okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, public comment for any and all items on today's agenda. If anyone on the line wishes to speak to the item on the agenda, please speak to it now. Justine is assisting today to moderate our public comment line, and Justine in a second will be introducing our first speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first speaker this morning is Manuel Gamboa. Mr. Gamboa. Mr. Gamboa, Manuel Gamboa, you might be muted.
Oh, yeah. Morning.
Good morning.
I'm
Go
Manuel
ahead.
Gamboa. Yes. Morning, everybody. I'm Manuel Gamboa. My son, Kyle Gamboa, jumped off the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, September 20th of 2013. And since then, my wife and I have been attending the board member meetings. And we asked the directors and the staff to assemble or put something together to help prevent these types of deaths that have happened there at the Golden Gate Bridge. Since then, you guys have put a suicide deterrent net, and I see that one of the most important pieces is being installed now, the net itself. So with that, I'd just like to thank the directors and the staff and all the families that have asked for this and that have made this all happen. And of course, with all the funding, all those people backing it. And with that, I'd just like to thank you and look forward to the completion.
Thank you, Mr. Gamboa, for your comment and persistence. Justine, next caller, please.
Thank you. Our next caller is Dave Rohde. Mr. Rohde?
President Ferry, board members, managers, and staff, good morning. My name is Dave Rohde. I'm with the Climate Reality Project. On September 25th, 2019, this board voted unanimously to pass a climate emergency resolution. Here are some of the operative phrases in that resolution. The district agrees with the consensus among climate scientists that the climate crisis is happening now. Restoring a safe and stable climate requires an emergency mobilization to reach zero greenhouse gas emissions across all sectors, to rapidly and safely draw down to remove all excess carbon from the atmosphere, and to implement measures to protect all people and species from the consequences of abrupt climate change. Therefore, be it resolved that the district commits to a just transition and urgent effort to mitigate global warming, which, with appropriate financial and regulatory assistance from local, regional, state, and federal authority, reduces greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible towards zero net emissions. So 2.5 years later, where do you stand? Have you been making decisions and taking actions that are commensurate with an emergency? You know the answers better than I do, but I do know this. According to the zero emissions bus rollout plan that you filed with CARB, 2 years from now, you plan to still buy 23 new diesel coaches. And it isn't until 2026 that you plan to start buying any electric buses. And as far as I know, you still have no timeline for converting your ferry fleet to all electric. Cities around the world, New York, London, Sydney, and dare I say even Moscow and Beijing are buying electric buses by the tens of thousands. Many would be ideal for the hilly terrain your buses cover. Their lightweight electric traction drives recover as much as 90% of their electricity by using an ingenious technology called regenerative braking. And you heard me sing the praises of Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Finland, who operate massive ferry fleets, all powered exclusively by electricity. I haven't been coming here for the last 28 months because I love talking about climate change. But after I trained with Al Gore and became a climate reality leader, I could no longer ignore the fact that we're facing a global climate emergency. I thought you agreed. When you passed your climate emergency resolution, you committed to an urgent effort to mitigate global warming, to reducing your greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible. If you meant what you said, every agenda of this board and every plan considered by the Transportation Committee should include climate action. If your house is on fire, is there anything more pressing than putting it out? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde. Next speaker, please, Justine.
Our next speaker is Shane Weinstein. Shane, go ahead.
Chair Terrio, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, Chair. Good morning, Chair Terrio and his fellow director, Shane Weinstein, President of the HU. First of all, thank you for your consideration today in voting yes to ratify the tentative agreement between the district and our union. It's been 7 months of tough negotiations, and we look forward to a 3-month break before getting back at it in June. Thanks also to the district bargaining team for helping us get this done before it was drug on too long. With that said, I've come to this body month after month trying to sound alarm bells about the amount of operators we currently have here and the exodus that is happening as we speak. We have gone from 270 operators in June of 2020 to 190 operators today. Of those 80 operators who have left, 53 have taken place just in the last 12 months. This is an emergency. Mr. Mulligan will shortly present the GM report where he will tell you we're only carrying roughly 30% of our normal ridership. Well, here's some numbers that you may be interested in. We're currently only running 40% of the routes that we were pre-pandemic level. We have cut our basic service by 19% and also cut our commute service by 87%. The lowest came when the district recently cut weekend basic service on the Route 130, leaving the most vulnerable and transit-dependent portion of our communities with no ride. This isn't unfortunate. This is unnecessary and it's unreasonable. Now, looking at comparing other large Bay Area agencies to Golden Gate Transit, you can see how we have stranded our passengers and let them down. BART just went to full 100% pre-pandemic levels with only 25% ridership. VTA is at 85% of pre-pandemic levels with only 30% ridership. Samtrans is at 80% of pre-pandemic levels with only 30% ridership. And in comparison, Golden Gate Transit is only at 65% of pre-pandemic levels with 30% ridership. Mr. Mulligan, you must be transparent when you're making these comparisons. We are nowhere close to full pre-pandemic service like other Bay Area agencies are, so that must be taken into account when you are reporting to this board. It is our duty as a bus transit agency, to put service on the road for those who are dependent on it, to take cars off the road for congestion purposes, and to help our environment. The path Golden Gate Transit Management is on. We are forcing people to get in their cars, the exact opposite of what we should be striving for. There are petitions going around in Mill Valley community because these residents want the floor back so badly. Just like in the Field of Dreams, it was stated, if you build it, they will come. Well, the same rings true with the bus. You must drive by for people to get on. We have again let our communities down and we have deserted them. We must get our buses out there to pick them up. My operators are ready to work the lengthy hours that have been cut for them over the past 2 years. When you can't hire anyone, you can't just keep cutting service because people need our services. We are here to do the work. Let's get our buses back out there. And one last thing. I think it would be very advantageous to the district to hire an outside hiring consultant to help us. We have lost 70 operators since September of 2020, and we've gained 1. Again, this is an absolute emergency with personnel and service. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marina Sacitano. Marina?
Hi, Marina Sacitano, Inland Boatmen's Union and Labor Coalition Chair. 161 years ago, Abraham Lincoln said that labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could never have existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves a much higher consideration. The success of the stature of the Golden Gate Bridge is because of the men and women who built it and who continue to quietly and safely perform their duties to keep it running safely. Time and time again, we have come before you to ask for your assistance in getting your workforce a fair contract. We have been in bargaining for over 2 years and have had 27 negotiation sessions. We continue to be far apart from a settlement that our 13 unions and 400 members will ratify. Our fight is a fight for working people, and we will not stop until we have justice for these men and women, the people who do the work and get you there on time. You've recently approved $1.2 million for a new division. That money was given not for an expansion, but rather to keep and protect what you have. So the idea that you don't have enough money to pay our members a proper wage increase is not okay. We will not accept a 0 for our essential worker heroes. So I'm asking you if you will consider trying to find a way to give us what we believe is a fair contract. You know, you've taken down the information on the contact for the board of directors and their terms. We believe you should put that back. And, you know, as you go into deliberation to talk about what's available for us, I hope you consider that $1.2 million that you so lavishly spent on an expansion that should be part of what we believe would be a fair and just contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Secretano. Ms. Bach, the next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Warren Wells. Warren, go ahead.
President Theriault, members of the board, my name is Warren Wells. I'm the Policy and Planning Director for the Marin County Bicycle Coalition. As you know, the Bridge District has been very focused on improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians in the bridge structure in the past year, an effort our organization has been highly supportive of. The safety study was accepted by this body last year, and many of its recommendations are already being implemented. However, I want to raise a safety concern not addressed by the study, and that's the connection to the bridge on the Marin side, Alexander Avenue. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Bay Area biking, this is one of the most biked streets in the Bay, likely in the nation. You're looking at Strava data, which is a workout tracking app. There are hundreds of people using it every day, which only captures a fraction of the riders because many people are tourists. And yet, despite its heavy use, it's a dangerous road. Since 2010, there have been 69 reported injury crashes among bicyclists, 15 of them resulting in serious injuries. And it's not just bicycle users. 46 people in cars were injured in crashes on Alexander in the same period, 4 of them seriously. And while no one has been killed in this segment during that time, I do want to call attention to a fatal crash that occurred just 4 weeks ago on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard in Marin when a man on a bicycle, a passenger from San Francisco, riding in the shoulder, was struck from behind by a driver who drifted out of their lane. The configuration of that road is nearly the same as Alexander Avenue. This board has shown in the past that it's highly concerned with user safety, from the SDS to the movable median barrier. I urge similar action on this segment of road before a tragedy occurs like that on Sir Francis Drake. There are a number of common sense treatments that we would recommend. The pavement is frequently in rough condition, causing solo crashes. The traffic lanes are freeway standard width, 12 feet, which encourages speeding. Those lanes should be narrowed. At the crash hotspots, namely the intersection of Bunker Road, additional changes to reduce turning conflicts are necessary. I and our organization look forward to working with staff and board to improve safety of this road for the many users enjoying the bridge, the National Recreation Area, and Marin County. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
And thank you for your comments, Mr. Wells. Ms. Bach, do we have anyone else to speak? I have one more on my list, yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have one more speaker, David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. Okay, so David Pilpel from San Francisco. I haven't had a chance to check the minutes. If I see anything of note, I will contact the district secretary. On item 6B2, the new ATU 1575 MOU, it is difficult to comment at this time without seeing the document and analysis, so perhaps if you'll have a summary in open session and reopen public comment, and I'll have some thoughts at that time based on your disclosure. On item 8A1, the 2021 Title VI program, the Bus Passengers Advisory Committee now meets at 5:30 and not 6 o'clock. That's on page 15 of the program packet, page 57 from transportation from yesterday. I would also be pretty clear in that Title VI program that district advisory committees, including BPAC, FPAC, and ACA, will be consulted for outreach and input on Title VI triggered changes. I did think that the recent bridge bicycle safety study was an absolute model for public outreach and engagement, and hope that that model will be used in the future. I wanted to repeat and emphasize a couple of comments I made yesterday at Finance. As the operating budget is being developed, I hope that a new strategic financial plan is also coming. That might involve changes to bridge tolls and transit fares, and I would not wait to get started on that. And I don't know if that's the board, staff, or some combination. But I think that that's important to not wait till the last minute, and I would consider that sort of independent of developing the operating budget, that if there's a need to do so. And finally, just thanks as always to district staff from top to bottom, or bottom to top, or middle, all the way around for continuing efforts under tough conditions. Great people, great work. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. Ms. Bach, did you want a moment to check and see if anyone else has jumped onto the line?
I would, if you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you.
Please do.
Is there anyone new that's...
While she's doing that, President Thierry, I want you to know that Director Conroy had joined the line during public comment.
Very good. Welcome, Ms. Conroy.
Thank you, President Thierry. We have no other speakers under public comment.
All right. Then actually I will turn to General Manager Mulligan to ask if he has any comments on the comments of the speakers. I would particularly ask him to delineate for the board the district's responsibilities with regard to Alexander Avenue versus, for example, the Park Service or the county in response to Mr. Wells's testimony, and also ask for news on the progress toward establishment of a Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So with that, please, Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public, and staff. First, I'd like to thank Warren Wells for his comments and his advocacy, and staff will meet with him separately to review his ideas for Alexander Avenue. As you're traveling northbound across the Golden Gate Bridge, if you exit, take the Alexander Avenue exit, you come to an intersection where there's a stop sign, there's traffic coming from the west side underneath the elevated freeway. That portion of Alexander Avenue is controlled by Caltrans. All of this is federal land that I'm talking about, but Caltrans has that in their permitted area. So the intersection is not ours, but once you get beyond the intersection going down the hill, all the way down the hill till you see the sign for the Sausalito city limits, that is within our permitted area with the Park Service, so it is our responsibility. So we look forward to working with Mr. Wells to implement some changes. Our crews are currently working at night, paving, filling potholes south of the toll plaza, but they recently finished restriping the bridge, and they will be in the coming months focusing their attention on Alexander Avenue, and we look forward to working with him. But hopefully that kind of defines the limit. So as you get past that intersection, when you get off the freeway, from that point down the hill, we have an easement from the federal government that is ours, and at the Sausalito city limit, it becomes theirs, and so that is our obligation. With respect to Mr. Pilpel's comments, he referred to his comments yesterday, and yesterday he shared his projection of when we will run out of federal assistance. I wish Mr. Pilpel, I want to inform him that his estimate is incorrect in that the monies we have will last significantly longer than he highlighted yesterday. So the time before we reach the fiscal cliff is not as quick as he anticipates, and that I think that framed his comments. So I just want to share with him that we will be in the coming months as part of the budget, draft budget, releasing detailed information that talks about the cliff and the timing of it, and we look forward to his review of that when it's released. With respect to Ms. Secitano, the staff did meet with the Labor Advisory Committee group this morning. We do have additional authority, and we look forward to negotiating timely resolution of the contract. With respect to Mr. Weinstein, I will talk about travel patterns in the Golden Gate Corridor when it's my general manager report, and I'll be responsive to that. To Mr. Rohde, he highlighted an analogy of a house on fire. In life, we demonstrate our priorities by how we spend our money. Using that analogy, the house that's on fire is our need to fund the bridge, because if we don't get the requisite funding from outside sources for the final seismic retrofit phase of the bridge, it does endanger all of our bus and ferry service. And so the house that's on fire is the need to get money for the retrofit of the bridge. Absent that, other problems cease to be problems because they cease to exist. And so I just wish to be clear that we're very focused on the climate emergency, but the bridge is essential, and that is our primary focus. But we are in conversations with other transit agencies and MTC and doing joint applications for the new money that's coming from Washington, D.C. for electrification. When we asked the board to approve the zero-emission bus plan, we were quite clear that if money became available sooner, that we would be interested in doing that. But we need other people's money to purchase electric buses and to install infrastructure, just like we do any bus and infrastructure. And then, as always, I want to thank Mr. Gamboa. He and his wife have been incredible, successful advocates for the construction to suicide barrier, and we can't thank them enough for their exemplary advocacy for that project. And that concludes my response to the public comments.
I did have one other thing that I asked, and that was with regard to progress toward establishing the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Do we have any news on that?
Yes, well, my apologies, I missed that one, President Theriault. In March, we will begin advocacy to fill that one, as well as fill vacancies on our other advisory committees. So staff has been working, putting together some of the foundational framework, kind of like a charter for the group that we'll share with advocates when we do that. But we anticipate in March that we'll be doing advocacy, doing outreach to various bicycle pedestrian groups to solicit interest in membership in that committee. And so March we'll do that, and we can report back over the next couple of months with respect to the status of how that effort's coming along.
I can tell you that some of us on the board are very interested in watching how that progresses as well. So I look forward to those reports. Thank you, General Manager Mulligan. So that concludes public comments for the items on today's agenda. Madam Secretary, please continue to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5 to approve the consent calendar, including the approval of minutes from the committee and board meetings in January, as well as ratification of actions by the Auditor Controller. Because consent calendar is located on pages 5 to 34 of your packet.
Thank you. Before the directors vote, do any of them have questions or corrections on the consent calendar? Then not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
So moved.
Second.
I have various motions and various seconds. I'll let you sort that out, Madam Secretary.
I sure can.
And then please take a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're only voting on item number 5 with a first and a second, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Director Conroy. Director Conroy?
I'm sorry, aye.
Thank you. Director Garbarino?
Aye.
Director Giudice?
Yes.
Director Grosval?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Maston?
Aye.
Director Milgar?
Aye.
Director Parr?
Aye.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Rodoni?
Aye.
Director Snyder?
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Thier?
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill?
Aye.
First Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
And President Theriault?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 17 ayes.
That means the motion passes. Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
Item number 6A is the report of the General Manager, and that staff report can be found on pages 35 to 48 of the packet. Dennis Mulligan's here to present his report. Dennis, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Secretary, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public. My written report is before you. In coming months, I will include an item on the status of the rollout of the new Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee until such time as it is successfully launched. So I look forward to reporting that in future months. I won't go through all the items in my report, but I do want to highlight a couple that I think are of note, and then one that would be responsive to the public comment from Mr. Shane Weinstein. First off, I'd like to share some good news. Last fall, the Bridge District staff worked in partnership with Amalgamated Transit Union, or HE Local 1575, the College of Marin.
General Manager Mulligan, I'm going to interrupt you and ask people if they're not on mute to put themselves on mute, please. I'm sorry, go ahead then, General Manager Mulligan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we worked with ATU Local 1575, College of Marin, Santa Rosa Junior College, and the California Transit Works to design 2 workforce development programs for recruiting qualified bus operator candidates and to enhance the professional development of our bus operators. And so both programs will be focused on outreach to disadvantaged priority populations to recruit candidates. And these joint applications were successful. They were submitted in December, and on February 4th, we received the good news that both programs were fully funded at an amount of $500,000 for College of Marin and $500,000 for the Santa Rosa Junior College, for $1 million total. And so we look forward to continued partnership, and we view this as a very valuable tool going forward to allow us to recruit drivers, but also to bring them on board with better skills and for them to get some credit and some compensation as they go through that process. The second item I'd like to draw your attention to is associated with the ongoing construction of the suicide barrier on the bridge. The construction of the net blocks the district's maintenance access platforms that roll along the bridge. We call those rolling maintenance platforms travelers. They are blocked by the arms, and so that impacts our ability to inspect and maintain the suspension bridge. So as part of the project, we were also building new travelers that work around the net. However, a few of the manufactured components in the new travelers are items that are no longer made in the United States. So we did file a waiver request to the Federal Highway Administration for what's known as a Buy America waiver. And I'm pleased to inform you that that was approved effective February 8th. And it's noteworthy because it's the thus far only approval that's been approved by the federal government in the last 14 months. But it's a significant milestone for the project. It removes a lot of potential financial risk for the district with respect to the contractor's ability to assert claims with any merit as it pertains to the construction and fabrication of those scaffolds. So I just want to share that. I also want to update you on the risk to bus and ferry funding because there is an ongoing risk to all of the federal funding we receive for operating assistance, but more importantly, our capital projects on the bus and ferry side. The U.S. Department of Labor and the Amalgamated Transit Union, ATU, are engaged in litigation against the state of California with respect to the impacts of the California Public Employees Pension Reform Act, or PEPRA, of 2013. The allegation is that PEPRA violates the collective bargaining rights of transit workers in California, and that there's a federal protection of transit workers known as 13C that runs that amuck of, and if something violates 13C, grants are denied. I mentioned to you previously how last fall the state filed a motion to stay the U.S. Department of Labor's implementation of their new determination that would have blocked our American Rescue Plan grants. Unfortunately, the court weighed on that stay, so our American Rescue Plan second tranche of funding has been received. However, all future FTA grants for bus and ferry are at risk. There was a motion for summary judgment that occurred last Thursday, and at this juncture, there's been no ruling from the court. But if the state is successful in their motion for summary judgment, then that cloud over our FTA grant is lifted, and there is no more concern. However, if that motion is not successful, then the matter will go to trial. And until there's a resolution from the court on that trial, it will be a trial by a judge, not a jury. All future FTA funds are potentially at risk. With respect to travel in the corridor, travel in the corridor still remains well below pre-pandemic levels. But of note, we have lots of charts. Yesterday, Joe Wire, your auditor controller at Finance, walked you through charts that showed three colored lines plus a yellow dot to show the beginning of the current calendar year. Bridge traffic is down about 20%, but those charts show that bridge traffic's down significantly, bus ridership's down 75%, and ferry ridership's down about 80%. So we're carrying about 25% of our prior bus customers and about 20% of our ferry customers. But what those charts mask is that during the commute period, it's even down much, much more. Pre-pandemic, half of all of our bus service hours were on commute service. Well, people are not driving into San Francisco during the commute period. Any statements to that effect are not fully informed. Last month, Monday through Friday, from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., commute traffic on the bridge was down 40%. So people are not driving into San Francisco during the commute period. Locally, there's lots of traffic that's occurring. If you're in a neighborhood in San Francisco or in Marin County, you can see local congestion on city streets. On Highway 101 in Marin County, you see congestion. That's all local travel. At this juncture, regional travel between Marin and San Francisco is well down, particularly during the commute period. We're not offering virtually any commute bus service, yet bridge traffic is down 40%. We offer very little ferry service. So at this juncture, downtown San Francisco remains closed. We were pleased to hear Mayor London Breed on the news last Friday, encouraging employers to bring workers back starting next month. And we look forward to that happening. And as it happens, we look forward to adding service on bus and ferry. It's important to note that we don't offer just one mode, and that we look at bus and ferry service in concert with bridge traffic because we manage a corridor. We want to have people move in the corridor as efficiently as possible, meeting the board's goals for equity and the goals boards for mobility, and to meet our climate emergency challenges. But at this juncture, during the commute period, travel into San Francisco is not happening. That is a one-time period where travel has not bounced back across the bridge via bridge, bus, or boat. We look forward to downtown San Francisco reopening to see a return of that. So travel is way down. When travel is down, it means revenues are down. So we're taking in less money than we did before the pandemic. For the week of February 6th, we took in over $900,000 less in tolls and fares than we did before the pandemic. If people say that they're going to drive into San Francisco because the bus isn't available, we are not seeing it, particularly during the commute hours when we have so little traffic across the bridge. Moving on to awards, I am pleased to announce that we have several service awards for employees. The first is to celebrate 25 years of service. Congratulations to Daniel Gomez. Daniel Gomez currently works in electronic revenue collection as an analyst in our budget shop. Mr. Gomez originally joined the district as a part-time toll collector, and he was then hired on February 3rd as a permanent toll collector in 1997. He then rose to the ranks. He was promoted to a bridge sergeant in our security office in 1998, and he also worked as an acting and provisional lieutenant. In December of 2014, he was promoted to the finance office where he currently works. And some of his proudest achievements is he went back to school while he was working and completed his bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate. Mr. Gomez enjoys spending time with the family and friends as well as going to the gym. He's participated twice in and worked as a volunteer staff for the AIDS life cycle. Our next presentation is a 20-year service award. It's to Ms. Bernadine Brown Scott. She works as a marketing coordinator in the district division. She originally joined the district as a timekeeping coordinator in our payroll department in February of 2002. She worked as an assistant in our human resources department, and she's worked in a couple of different places. In her free time, she's an active volunteer for Foster Care United and the Black and Missing Foundation. She enjoys spending time with her husband, Al, who also works for us, and their daughter. She enjoys swimming, hiking, traveling, and always a great movie. For the Employee of the Month Committee reviewed nominations from throughout the district, and they've selected Senior Civil Engineer Keith Hatcher as the Employee of the Month for February. He's recognized for consistently going above and beyond the call of duty. He's incredibly creative. He's worked to improve the bridge inspection team's work. He's digitized many things and brought things to a much higher standard in a more technically savvy fashion. He's been incredibly perceptive in pointing out areas of concerns when participating in the inspection so that repairs are done in a timely fashion. He's also worked very collaboratively in training fellow engineers on how to perform their tasks better. He's done a tremendous job with respect to our biennial National Bridge Inspection Report that's submitted to Caltrans and the Federal Highway. He coordinates a lot of work and is just incredibly well regarded by his colleagues. Of note, his colleagues talk about how pleasant he is to work with and what a valuable asset he is. He joined the district as an associate engineering inspector in 2018, and he was promoted to his current position in 2019. He was born in Pennsylvania and spent his early education years in New Jersey, and he lives with his wife and daughter. He's an avid surfer and a proud family man. He's a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Local 21 is who he represents him well, and he's a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey and California. But with that, we congratulate Mr. Hatcher, and that concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. Do any of the members of the board have questions for General Manager Mulligan on his report?
Yeah, this is Dick Grosbo. I did have one question.
Please go ahead, Mr. Grosbo.
Dennis, this is coming back to the ever persuasive Mr. Rohde and the climate change issue. Would you remind us why we did order those 22 new diesel buses and not go electric. Was it just a money issue, and why did we do the diesel buses? I cannot remember.
Great question, Director Goswell. We have not ordered them yet. The zero emission bus plan is a plan, and in our plan, we anticipate ordering diesel buses because at this juncture, that's the type of bus that can meet the service needs that we have. The buses that he's referring to for our next bus order are over-the-road coaches with 2 axles and back. And currently, there's not a bus available that meets the profile that we need to be able to deliver service to our customers. The next purchase of buses is a couple years beyond that, and that does contemplate electric buses. If the technology changes between now and then, we would have the ability to buy a bus that is a zero-emission bus. But at this juncture, there's not one manufactured in the United States that meets the Buy America requirement that meets the service profile of that. We have 2 types of buses in our fleet. We have 40-foot buses, kind of commonly referred to as a city bus, and those are currently made electric, and we currently operate 2 of those for Marin Transit, so we have a track record with those. But there's currently not a zero-emission similar bus that is the over-the-road coach. We used to say Greyhound-style bus. Today we might say Google or Facebook-style bus, but it's a different type of bus. It's also used on longer trips. We do put 400 miles a day on our buses pre-pandemic, and to have a bus that can meet that service profile may require that when we buy buses, we have to buy a lot more buses than we currently have because of reduced range and the time it takes to charge. But what he's referring to is a plan, and when we adopted the plan, we said if technology improves and money's available, that we would take appropriate steps to meet the stated intentions of your policy with respect to the climate emergency.
Can I just follow up? I think you were clear on that. So as I think I now remember this, the 400 miles a day is the problem in that some of these other Bay Area transit districts, those buses may not be going as far as that. That may be why they're able to get electric buses and we cannot. Is that part of the issue?
That's part of the issue. The other issue is the style of bus. No one makes a 45-foot electric bus when you adopted the ZEB plan. And the 45-foot long bus is double axle. It's used for longer trips. It also has a lot more seats. It has 57 seats. And so we use those for, our 72Xs that leave Santa Rosa and go express into the city and some of the other trips. And at the time the plan was adopted, that was not something that was available for purchase. And so we, in the plan, outlined things that were available, recognizing that as things change, we will adapt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
President Terrio, I had a follow-up, if I may. This is Director Sears.
Yes, Director Sears, please go ahead.
Yes, General Manager Mulligan. As everyone knows, I'm new. I was wondering if there could be a report at a future board meeting about the electric vehicle purchase program and some of the items that were addressed in public comment.
Certainly. We did adopt the zero-emission bus plan last year. Staff can forward that to you and do a briefing with you on that. And then at a future meeting, we can, maybe at the one-year anniversary of that plan adoption, talk about what may have changed in the ensuing time with respect to technology and available funding.
Okay. And is part of the problem the Buy America, or are there buses that exist?
There's a couple issues. One is we buy buses using other people's money. They're generally funded with funds from the Federal Transit Administration. And FTA, when they fund a bus, doesn't fund a replacement of that bus until it's at least 12 years old. Okay. So if we bought 67 buses 2 years ago, we can't replace those buses for another 10 years unless there's some new funding program that comes into play that would give us money to do that. So that's one issue, is the funding and the life cycle of a bus and the expectation of funding partners, how long you keep a bus. Another issue is the technology. We do go up hills. We go up the Waldo Hill. We go up the Cotati grade. We do provide heat and AC to our customers. We put a lot of miles on a bus, so there's some challenges. But the plan kind of went through all that and talked about available technology, and it outlined what were prudent steps based on what was then known with respect to technology and funding. But we also acknowledge those are moving targets, so it's probably prudent that we come back to the board every year and just update them on the status of that effort, what's changed and where we are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Chair
Thank you,
Terrio,
Director.
this is Patty. May I make a comment?
Go ahead, please, Director Garbarino.
Thank you so much. Yes, I was just going to reiterate what Dennis just said about the technology issue. We too operate a fleet with probably vehicles that have similar weight to the buses. And I know Governor Newsom has authorized or is pressing us to go electric by 2025. The technology simply is not there for vehicles of that weight. But like with the bus district doing a great job, we keep investigating almost at every juncture just to make sure that the new technology that's out there has been explored as well. And I know the Bridge District is doing a great job at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director
This is
Garbarino.
Director Hill.
Yes, please go ahead, Director Hill.
Yes. Yeah, to that, as you may recall, I was one who questioned the wording on the 24, which was certain to one where we would reevaluate. I wonder if two factors would be worth reevaluation. One, what is going to be the demand when we come out of this? Will it be as much as it would that would justify that big a bus for that purpose? And secondly, is because the entire bipartisan bill provides a lot more money and puts climate as a primary factor. Could we relook and see if there isn't a bus that is available, and if we could get the money for that extra factor? Because those are three things that have happened since that study was done. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Hill. Yeah, it's prudent to revisit it periodically. Probably annually makes sense. With respect to demand, a larger bus for certain trips is more efficient to operate, and operating costs are always a bigger challenge than the actual capital cost for transit, because operating subsidy is the hardest money to come up with. So we have found that having a mixed fleet of 40-foot buses and 45-foot buses works for our service area, and we have not thus far seen any change in that. We do have a need for both style buses, but that is something we evaluate every time we do purchases. But you are correct, there is some money available in the new bipartisan infrastructure bill. The Build Back Better proposed bill has significantly more, and also the state has a budget surplus. So as part of all of those efforts, we are advocating for money, and we are advocating for joint applications for grants with other agencies, which seems prudent to collaborate on those efforts and also to collaborate on the procurements. And so we will keep you abreast of those efforts.
Some of you may hear the hybrid muni diesel electric buses going by my window as I conduct the meeting here.
Mr. President, this is Director Rodoni.
Yes, Director Rodoni, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the update, Dennis. I did just want to report, I may have said this at the committee meeting earlier, I recently visited the Gillick factory in Livermore, and the message I got from them is they won't be anytime soon building an electric 45-foot bus because they don't think technology's caught up enough to provide the power with electric, but they are looking into the cell technology, which they think will be the way they'll be going in the future with the bigger vehicles. So just a little information for the board.
Thank you, Director Rodoni. Do any other directors have comments or questions on the General Manager's report? Then I believe we are done. Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 6B, and that's the report of the attorney, and the staff report's found on page 49. And we have Attorney Madeline Chen on the line to present this report, as well as the recommendation that's listed under the agenda. Ms. Chen, go ahead and proceed with your report.
Thank you, Secretary Coe. I am pleased to answer any questions regarding the written report, which is included in the board packet relating to the support of the legal office for the various activities of the district. We had also agendized a closed session, which we will not be needing today, but we are going to be asking the board for approval to ratify the Memorandum of Understanding with the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1575. And we're very pleased to bring that item forward to you in open session at this time. The General Manager and Molly Caven, who is the district's labor negotiator, are here to describe for you the salient terms of this Memorandum of Understanding, which was ratified by the ATU yesterday. So with that, I will turn this over to Molly and to Dennis.
Molly, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to go. I wasn't sure who was going to go first. Good morning, everyone. This is Molly Cabin, the district's labor negotiator. We're pleased to present this morning our tentative agreement with the Amalgamated Transit Union for a short 12-month contract. After months of difficult negotiations, we're happy to have this agreement, which is the bus operators have voted and voted for overwhelmingly in favor of the contract. The primary issues that have held up these negotiations are wages and changes to the ATU pension plan, which, as you are aware, is quite underfunded. So after much back and forth on these topics, we have tentatively agreed to a wage proposal that would give the bus operators a 3.5% increase on ratification, as well as $1,000 lump sum payment in cash. And this is in line with what the other transit agencies have been doing for their bus operators. VTA and Samtrans have been giving 3 and 4% wage increases, as well as cash incentives. And we also feel that this is in recognition of the bus operators' hard work over the last couple of years of the pandemic, which has been quite a difficult time. And they have been on the front lines of that. So we wanted to give them a significant wage increase. And we think that this package that we're bringing you today does that. We have also been working on changes to the pension plan to try and bring the ATU pension in line with best practices of CalPERS or Taft-Hartley pension plans. And the major changes that we've agreed to is an increase in the district's contribution of 2%, which brings it close to the contribution rate of the CalPERS contributions, which the majority of the represented employees and the non-represented employees of the district are in the CalPERS plan. And the ATU has also agreed to eliminate what we call the spousal subsidy, which is when a retiree elects survivorship benefits for their spouse so that the spouse continues to get a pension benefit after the retiree passes away, that they will be receiving the actuarially determined benefit amount, which it takes into account the expanded timeline of the pension payment, in essence, 2 lifetimes instead of 1. So the overall pension benefit is reduced, and eliminating that subsidy which the ATU now has, we believe will help put the plan on a better track into the future. We've also agreed to a number of smaller changes, work rule changes related to attendance, leaves of absence, that our administrative staff and HR professionals wanted to make their lives easier. Some of the provisions were very difficult to understand and lots of questions and administrative problems with them. So we've made a number of those smaller changes, which we think will benefit our staff as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the tentative agreement.
So if I may, this is Dennis. The Labor Advisory Committee met this morning and there was unanimous consensus in recommending this to the board. So once again, a 3.5% wage increase, $1,000 lump sum payment, a 2% increase in contributions to the pension plan by the district, and the pension plan will make a change with respect to the survivor benefit. So staff strongly encourages the board to approve this today.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan, Ms. Caven, and Ms. Chun. Do any of the board members have questions or comments for staff and council on this matter? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, Mr. Pilpel earlier raised the question of whether there would be public comment on this. It is appropriate that there is, and so if here anyone else from the public wishes to comment, having heard the presentation, now would be the moment.
Great, thank you very much. If you could give us 1 second, we'll just make sure that the folks on the line that want to speak get recognized, okay? So give us 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, we have 1 speaker today. It will be Mr. Pilpel, so in a second, I am going to unmute the line and have him join us.
Thank you.
David, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
We sure can. Go ahead.
Great. David Pilpel again. So I support the proposed MOU as described. It would be great in the future if there's a way to have like a 1-page written summary of the material terms and the cost impacts, but I appreciate the description that Attorney Caban gave. I hope the pension board will follow through on the pension changes that were described, and perhaps others too, as you've discussed over the last few months. And I'm not sure I heard what the fiscal impact is for the current budget year, if there's an estimate on that, and I assume that that's within the adopted operating budget. And I thank the district staff, negotiators, and ATU representatives, everybody who made this happen. I think this is good. If it's not good for the whole world, it's certainly good for our little part of the world here. And it is consistent with recent actions by Samtrans and VTA. So I agree with that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. General Manager Mulligan or Ms. Caban, did you have anything to add after public comment?
No, just that, we want to once again thank Mr. Shane Weinstein and the leadership of ATU, Jim Lindsay, the International Vice President, as well as the district's negotiating team in getting us to this juncture. And we recommend that you approve this item today.
My thanks as well. Do we have a motion to authorize ratification of a memorandum of understanding with Transit Union?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
A chorus of motions and seconds. And again, Madam Secretary, you can sort it out, but
right.
Let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item 6B2 with a first and second, and we're going to start with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Conroy.
Aye.
Director Garbarino.
Aye. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Director Parr was trying to make a comment.
Okay, hang on a second. Director Parr, were you making a comment or were you making the motion?
I was making the motion, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Director Garbarino, that was an aye. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Grossball.
I believe Director Grosswell has recused himself.
Thank you. He's no longer on the line. That's correct. So let me mark that. Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Aye.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 16 ayes.
That means that this one passes too. Before we go on, I'm going to thank everyone again who was involved. Appreciate the time and effort by the negotiating teams from both sides to get to this point. We're going to get right back to work, it appears. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 6C is the report of the chief engineer, and the report can be found on page 51 to 90 of the board meeting packet. And Ava Bauer-Furbush will present her report. Ms. Bauer-Furbush, go ahead.
Thank you, Amoret. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my written report is before you, and I would like to bring to your attention the status of the suicide deterrent project. I'm pleased to report that the first segment of the suicide deterrent net has been installed on the west side of the north approach viaduct. And you can look at the pictures of that installed net. They are attached to the end of my report. The contractor continues what we call sewing operations on that segment of the net. What the so-called sewing operation does is attaches permanently the net to the supporting border cables. Further, the contractor finalizes the design for the access system to install net on the south approach viaduct. And also there is fabrication going on in Greenberry, Vancouver, Washington, the fabrication of an apparatus that the contractor needs for installation of the net on the suspension bridge. The contractor is working on finalizing its access plan for the installation on the suspension bridge. And also the work is ongoing on installation of so-called fixed access platforms that will be used when the maintenance forces will have to enter the new travelers that will be installed on the suspension bridge. And as you may be aware, the travelers will be propelled by electric motors using the battery systems. So those batteries at the end of the day would have to be recharged. So the contractor is also working on installation of charging stations on the suspension bridge. So with this, I am available to answer any questions that the board may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. It's a wonderful concept, ironworker sustainability. I would reiterate something the Secretary pointed out. There was no Building and Operating Committee meeting this month, and so the Chief Engineer's report, which is generally in the materials for that meeting, is to be found in the board meeting packet, the full board meeting packet this month, if anyone from the public wants to look at it. Is there anyone from the board that has questions or comments related to the engineer's report? I hear nobody. So thank you again, Ms. Bauer-Furbush, and Madam Secretary. Let's move along.
Thank you. I had to unmute myself. We'll move on to item 8 since there's no other reports under item 7. Item 8A is report of the Transportation Committee meeting of Thursday, February 24th, and that summary of recommendations for this meeting can be found on page 91 of your packet.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to read one of these long legalese things to you now. Colleagues, action item 8A before us today is statistics compliance, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and was discussed in further detail at yesterday's Transportation Committee meeting before being presented to the full board for action. The Title VI program incorporates methods for providing assistance to people who do not have proficiency in speaking or understanding the English language, and I would like to compliment the staff involved in putting the report together. In addition, I would like to give a special mention to Planning Department staff for the Title VI presentation and the Regional Transit Coordination presentation at the Transportation Committee meeting. Although there is no action before us relative to the item on transit coordination, it was important to hear that the region's transit operators have coordinated and cooperated in unprecedented ways during the pandemic to improve the customer experience. Chair Arnold, now begins your committee's report to the board.
Thank you, President Theriault. The Transportation Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item Number 8.A.1 to adopt the District's 2021 Title VI program as presented by staff, which demonstrates the District's compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as detailed and attached to the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you for your motion, Chair Arnold. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. A couple of seconds. Are there questions, comments, or concerns from board members on item 8A1?
I just wanted to make a quick comment, if I may, President Theriault.
This is Director Thier?
Yes.
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, I just wanted to commend staff on this program, also on all of the outreach that was done. The report was very detailed. There was a lot of outreach done, and you know, improving equitable access is very important for the district, and the report showed a lot of work and commitment. So I just wanted to commend staff and our general manager on that as well.
Thank you, Director Thier. Anything else from members of the board on item 8A1? Then, Madam Secretary, another roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Voting again on item 8A1, so I can repeat that. We have a first and a second, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye, with a thank you to the staff.
Thank you. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 16 ayes.
And that suffices for adoption of the item. Chair Arnold, anything else to report?
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Arnold. Madam Secretary, the next item on the agenda, please.
Moving on to item 8B, which is the report of the Finance Auditing Committee meeting of Thursday, February 24th. And that summary of recommendations for this meeting can be found on page 93 of your packet.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Colleagues, the action items in B before us were discussed at yesterday's Finance Auditing Committee meeting before being presented to the full board for action. I'd like to note in particular item 8B1, which addresses a matter that was brought to our attention last November when the board approved ferry service to Angel Island. Public had expressed concerns that the established ferry fares may have posed a potential hardship for school groups and nonprofits. Congratulations to staff for bringing to us a pilot program to mitigate fares for these groups. I'm pleased that it includes all Golden Gate Ferry routes as well as the Angel Island route. Chair Rabbit, please begin your committee's report to the board.
Thank you very much, President Theriault. The Finance Auditing Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8B1 to approve the establishment of a pilot program for nonprofit/educational group fares for Golden Gate Ferry service that offers a discount for nonprofit and educational groups of approximately 35% over current Golden Gate Ferry adult single ride and youth, seniors, persons with disabilities, or Medicare fares, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you for your motion, Chair Rabbit. Is there a second?
Second.
Couple of seconds. Any questions, comments, or concerns from board members on item 8B1? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, another roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and a second on 8B1, starting with Director Arnold. Director Arnold? All right, Director Arnold stepped away. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice?
Yes.
Director Grosball?
Aye.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Maston?
Aye.
Director Milgar?
Aye.
Director Parr?
Aye.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Rodoni?
Aye.
Director Snyder?
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Thier?
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill?
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
And President Terrio?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 15 ayes.
And that means this one passes too. Chair Rabbit, you have more for your report, I think.
I do. The Finance Auditing Committee is also recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8B2 to approve renewal of the district's marine insurance program as detailed in the staff report. Relative to the district's protection and indemnity exposures, hull and machinery exposure, vessel pollution exposures, marine general liability exposures, as well as the excess marine general liability insurance program for a renewal package totaling $959,445 effective February 20th, 2022, and I so move.
And so I again have a motion from Director Rabbit. I again have a second.
I'll second.
A couple seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members on this pricey item? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, please conduct another roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and a second on item 8B2, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice?
Yes.
Director Grosball?
Aye.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Maston?
Aye.
Director Milgar?
Aye.
Director Parr?
Aye.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Rodoni?
Aye.
Director Snyder?
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Thier?
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill?
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
And President Terrio?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 15 ayes.
And the motion passes. Chair Rabbit, continue report as appropriate.
Finance Auditing Committee is recommending authorization of Board Agenda Item 8B3 to receive the Independent Auditor's Single Audit Report for the year ending June 30th, 2021, as submitted by Edie Bailey, LLP, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you again for your motion, Director Rabbit, and I will once more a second. Someone give me a second.
I'll second.
Director Thier.
Yeah, now there's a couple seconds. Okay. Are there questions or comments from board members on this item?
Just one comment, Director Thier here. I
Go ahead,
wanted
Director
to
Thier.
commend. I just wanted to commend staff for a clean audit, and I know that there's a lot of moving parts to the district, a lot of money moving through the district, and I think it's a testament to the financial controls that the district received a clean audit. So thank you for all of your work on that.
A clean audit is always nice. Any other directors with comments? Then, Madam Secretary, it's time for another roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item 8B3 with a first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino?
Aye.
Director Giudice?
Yes.
Director Grosball?
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. That is 15 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, again. That means we have another motion that has passed. Chair Rabbit, do you have anything further to report?
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. I was afraid after not getting a second for so long that they were getting tired of both of us. Madam Secretary, please continue with the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, President Terrio. There's no addresses to the board under agenda item number 9. So we're going to move on to item number 10, which is special order of business. We're going to start with 10A relative to conducting remote committee and board meetings. And just wanted the board to know that staff is carefully following the conversations at the state level on potential changes. But at this time, staff is recommending the board adopt a resolution to allow us to continue remote meetings in accordance with Assembly Bill 361. That a proclaimed state emergency continues to impact the ability of this board to meet safely in person. I have a very brief staff report on page 95 of your packet, and I'm respectfully requesting the board's approval on this item with the understanding the board may be considering it again at its next meeting in March.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And to the board, I will remark that the Secretary and I are in ongoing conversations about how and when we come out of this. Are there any board members with questions or comments on item 10A? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve that we continue as we...
I'll move, Mr. President.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. It's the first and second on item 10A. I'm going to start with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
That's 15 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. That item also passes. Madam Secretary, the next item, please.
Item 10B is also a recurring item on the agenda, and that's the discussion and possible action to terminate the suspension of board procedural rules and policies for COVID-19 related emergency actions. Mr. Mulligan's brief staff reports on page 97, and he is available on the line to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from members of the board for Mr. Mulligan? Hearing none, what I would look for is, and I believe it's appropriate, a motion that we continue consideration of this item until special order of business at the next regular meeting of the board. Can I have a motion to that effect?
On behalf of you, President Terrio, I'd like to either move or second it. This is your item always.
Okay. All right. It belongs to the board. So there is a motion, and I heard a second, I think, too. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
That's correct.
Okay. Then let's have a roll call vote again.
Thank you. We have a first and second on item 10B, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy. Absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 15 ayes.
Next month. Madam Secretary, next item on the agenda, please.
We have no unfinished business under item 11. Item number 12, new business, is a report by directors that attended the APTA, the American Public Transportation Association, 2022 Virtual Transit Board Member Seminar.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We had several members of the board attend this virtual meeting. It became possible because it was virtual and there was no travel expense involved. So I did ask individual members who attended to report on one apiece on the 6 items on in the meeting's agenda, and I'd ask them to report before. Let's take all the reports before getting questions. So in the order in which the items appeared in that 2-day sequence of meetings, I'll start by asking Second Vice President Hill to report on the first session concerning the American Public Transit Association Advocacy Update, A View from Washington. Second Vice President Hill, please begin your report.
Yes, thank you. The presentation was centered on the $108 billion transit share of the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, often referred to as the IIJA to insiders and the Bipartisan Jobs Act to the rest of us. There was little discussion of the much larger Build Better Together Act, given its presently compromised status in the House and Senate, as well as the Transportation Appropriations Bill, named THUD, T-H-U-D, and Senate Bill 3011, the Fiscal Recovery Infrastructure Flexibility Act. Hopefully those will come up maybe before the next meeting, who knows. There were 3 presentations under this subject. One was, what can we expect from the bipartisan bill? The second was the advocacy implications, community, equity, and climate. And the third was development optimization. The biggest takeaway was the expanded focus of this bill, of the bipartisan bill, towards customer experience, equity, and climate change, delivered through the regional community engagement in addition to ridership as primary considerations in grants. I think we in the Bay Area are working in that direction already, as we have covered some of this month's agenda items. APT is prepared to assist its members in learning and negotiating through the complexity of these new sources of funding, and I'm available for questions if anyone has any.
And we'll take those questions again at the end of the 6 reports. Next, please, Director Maston on changing transit business models for a resilient recovery.
Yes, give me just a second. Oh, my laptop froze up, but I'm ready now. This was my first APTA. Thanks. This was my first APTA event, and I was impressed by the quality of the presentations and how well organized the 2 days were. My topic, changing transit business models for a resilient recovery, dealt with the impact of COVID on our industry and how to move forward. While different agencies have made some changes and implemented new programs and services, I felt like we were making many of them as well. While I didn't think there was anything startlingly new, it was interesting to hear the stories from other agencies. Bottom line, however, was it was long on the unknown and short on solutions. One thing that was common to all the agencies was the need for solid communications to and from staff and board, and to and from agencies and the public. Constantly changing mandates in the workplace and on transit need to be communicated quickly and clearly in order for all to feel safe. Worker shortages are affecting everyone, and while signing bonuses and increased benefits help some, COVID is forcing many drivers to retire early or move on to other, less stressful careers with no replacements in sight. Management is not immune to the current family and workplace stresses, and absenteeism is affecting all departments. ARPA funding is a lifeline to all agencies, but when it's exhausted, many are unclear of their next steps if ridership doesn't recover. Agencies with overlapping geographic areas have considered consolidating services either through mergers or, as we've done with SF Muni, providing service along routes that would normally be the purview of a different agency. In some cases, these changes may be long-term or permanent, but in the end, benefit the public. Short-term, everyone changed or dropped routes, but the pandemic gives most agencies the opportunity to take a look at their systems and determine if they were appropriately designed and serve the populations they need to serve or if they need to change long term. In a very harsh way, COVID may, in the long run, be a vehicle for providing better public transit. Some agencies are reducing fares with varying success. Chicago Transit Authority have some of their fares, but that did not seem to make a noticeable difference. Many agencies are trying technology methods of fare collection, such as using a smartphone, while a very few have dropped fares altogether. The bottom line is that everyone is struggling, but hoping that the new normal is just around the corner and that it is survivable. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Director Maston. And the next one is mine, I guess, and that's the third session on the first day, looking at transit through an equity lens. We have three panelists, India Birdsong from Cleveland, Alex Wiggins from New Orleans, and Caitlin Vargas from Lane Transit, which is in Oregon, the county including Eugene. And the moderator was Flor Castillo, who was a former APTA chair out of New Jersey. I pulled out 6 items just to run through. Mr. Wiggins from New Orleans said that concerning equity, his agency had arrived at a vision statement that I'll put forward for us to think about. We commit to listening, learning, and including voices from the diverse identities and abilities of our employees and our community. And we take care to consider how our decision-making processes address historic inequities in transportation, end quote. Second item, 2 of the agencies had created diversity councils. Vargas with Lane Transit in Oregon had put together one from all levels of the agency. I assume that means board, management, and staff at least. Possibly it includes users as well. Birdsong from Cleveland had also a DEI council, as she called it, although I didn't get the composition of that one. So we have now an equity advisory committee, but something for the equity advisory committee to consider, I think, in terms of making permanent its efforts. Third item, Birdsong and Vargas both reported that their agencies used an equity scorecard that had been developed by Transpo, which is a consulting firm based in Tampa with offices in 7 additional states, not including California, and in Ontario, Canada. Fourth item, Wiggins talked about equity as being a general challenge, and especially with regard to metrics. He called out which neighborhoods were served, frequency, headways, access to employment centers, and mobility. And any of the directors who made their way through the Title VI analysis that we voted on today will be familiar with most of those. I would add language, as we did. Birdsong pointed out that we need to move beyond Title VI data and to delve into the root causes of inequities. And she gave as an example the difficulty in getting female mechanics in as our employees. Fifth item, Vargas believed that we needed champions in the organization to help move things forward, but that once they had stepped forward, we needed to, in some way, institutionalize their efforts because people come and go. Board members come and go if they are those champions, and I want to thank Director Hernandez for her championship in that regard. But also staff members do, and so it's important to set up a system that somehow manages to keep the efforts going. Finally, the 6th item, Vargas from Lane County pointed out that that county, which runs in Central Oregon from the coast through Eugene toward the mountains, is predominantly white. And that conversations on equity as a result can become uncomfortable. I know in bicycling through there in recent years, there are a good number of Confederate flags on pickup trucks in Lane County. And although we don't have quite the same circumstance here, there are nonetheless along the 101 corridor or near it communities that are less diverse than others, in which we might also have some find some discomfort in discussing matters of equity. And that is my report. So moving along to day 2, Director Parr, you had an item to report on concerning board relationships with the staff, as I recall.
Right, boardsmanship, I think they called it. It was, as they all said, it was a fascinating way to visit APTA, but it was good. Mine is short and sweet. Basically, they reiterated that the board chair leads the board and that the CEO leads the organization. And that's how you keep a healthy organization. They actually said over and over, you need to stay in your lane. And that's the hardest thing, the most challenging aspect of being a board member. As a board member, we set policy, and operations are the work of the CEO. They bring us the policy. They had an adage, I said it's ACBD. I wanted it to be in order, but it wasn't. But it's always check before doing. As a board member, we sometimes think we know it all. And the truth of the matter is we probably don't know all of it. And so before you speak out, especially for the organization, always check before you do something. And they actually said, don't speak for the organization. On the public interface part, and I'm sure someone else will do this, but they said, you know, it's not your responsibility to talk to the press. If the press calls you, say, thank you very much for calling me. I'll hook you up with the CEO who will hook you up with the correct person. And we do have a wonderful public relations officer, so that resonated a little bit with me. The most interesting thing that I heard, and it's already been said, is that even in the boardsmanship presentation, they reiterated that recruitment has been an issue for everyone for at least 5 years, and that we must seriously consider severe service cuts to have enough staff. So I think that was a thread that ran through each of the sessions, and the sessions were well done. And I'd also like to give a shout out for SMART, the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit, because our own Heather McGillip, who's the CFO, was one of the panelists on the finance piece. So thank you for the opportunity to impart some information that they gave us.
Thank you very much, Director Parr. Next up would be Director Thier on the board's role in media relations, proactive messaging, and crisis communications. Director Thier, it is your turn.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I won't repeat what Director Parr said, but I do think that ACBD with respect to media, always check before doing, is very important. The moderator for this panel was Julie Heil, who's Vice Chair of the Connecticut Transit Board, Maggie Skosbacken, Chief Communications Officer for Pace Suburban Bus Arlington Heights, Tom Breed, the Public Information Officer for Regional Transit Service of Rochester, New York, and Joni Honor, Executive Officer of Communications and Public Relations for Los Angeles County Metro Transportation Authority. So a lot of the discussion was around how are media relations effective, and that it's very essential to an agency's community and stakeholder success to have effective media relations. And many of the presenters focused on how transit board members can most effectively communicate with the media. And, you know, how do board members prepare to respond to reporters? And also, what is the good practice in media management and messaging? One of the things that came up is that, you know, board members need to know what the agency's crisis communication management strategy is. And, you know, we as board members need to know the communication protocols and how can we be prepared as possible if we are called on by the press. Again, I'll go back to what Director Parr said. There was discussion about, you know, that your job as a board member is not to speak for the organization. However, you want to know what the message is that the organization is trying to send, so that if you are asked to make a comment, through the organization, that comment is on point and pertinent and advances the message of the organization. Also learning the communication protocols that was discussed, and making sure that if you are speaking to the press, that you are in sync and further advancing your particular organization's message. And that is my report. If there's any questions, we'll take them at the end, as President Terrio said.
Quite correct. Thank you, Director Fear. Finally, the last session was on understanding and shaping agency budgets and financial policies in an era of transit recovery. And for that, I'm going to put Director Snyder on the spot. Director Snyder, please go ahead.
All right, this is a big one. Thank you, Chair Terrio. Yeah, so mine was understanding and shaping agent budgets and financial policies in an era of transit recovery. And I thought it might be helpful. Here are the questions that were posed to our panel. What are the questions you need to be asking about operating budgets versus capital budgets and financing as board members ourselves? What are the different ways transit authorities are funding capital projects across the United States? And what does the new infrastructure funding mean for transit budgets? And another theme, how is the current job market influencing agency payrolls? Our moderator was, and we had a very experienced group. We had Charles Edmonds from Metro, Fort Worth, Texas, was the moderator. And then our speakers were the CFO of the Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, which is the Washington, D.C. Authority. And then SEPTA, which is Southeast Pennsylvania Authority, Eric Johnson. And as Board Member Parr pointed out, we had our very own Heather McKillop, the CFO of SMART, as a presenter too, which is pretty neat because I definitely see her as somebody we could really tap into. And before she was at SMART, she was in Denver. And then for 17 years, she was at their state agency for transportation in Colorado, so deep wealth of knowledge there. I guess my whole takeaway is kind of break it down was, operating budget versus capital budget. And, how do we approach that as board members? And some of this is pre-COVID stuff, and they kind of broke that out. This is how we traditionally done things. And then here's what we're facing post-COVID. And pre-COVID, kind of the consensus from the whole board was that as a board, we need a plan. And they recommended, a short-term plan, but a 5-year plan. They did this through board retreats with the CFO and key members of your agency. They continually acknowledge that every agency is different and has its own quirks. Some are just rail, some are multiple things. Obviously, we have multiple things here at the Golden Gate Bridge with our rail, or with our bus and ferry. But their big takeaway on that is it's really important to prioritize what our objectives are. So we need, as a board, to have a strategic goal and objective, and in that you align your goals with your budget. So your budget is an expression of your priorities. So as we prioritize things, our budget is an expression of that. And a couple of them kept saying, especially Heather, was like, if you accomplish what you put your money into, and that a lot of boards, we want to do all these things, but at the end of the day, what we fund is what we get. So we had a very robust conversation, and this was fascinating to me, about operating budget versus capital budget and what that means. And it seems like across the country, somewhere between 65 to 75% of the budget goes to operating or labor, and the rest is kind of capital maintenance. And I would say too that then we got into the conversation of that's kind of how it's traditionally run. Now with the post-COVID and everybody's facing the same kind of calamities, and some folks are cutting routes, some folks are doing things like we've already done to close the gap, which is going, automation for tolling or things of that nature. What I really thought was interesting though is they kind of said is that we have basically, we're going to get into a situation soon where right now we have the money from the feds through CARES and Carissa to, take care of our, which was designed to keep our folks working and to keep them employed and keep our routes open. They said that's about we got about 2 years to figure out that side of things if our ridership doesn't come back. And then ironically, with the American Investment Act and Recovery Act, we might get to a situation where we have enough to fund our labor for 2 years. And then after that, that money goes away. But ironically, we're going to have, we got $35 billion coming to California. We're going to have, over $120 billion we can bid on for capital and maintenance projects, where we're going to have a much larger influx of maintenance projects on the capital side. And as a board, we're going to be looking at why do we have all this money over here and not over here, when right now it's kind of the flip. So we talked about, how do we balance that? And as the board, we're going to have to really figure out kind of those, the interplay between those two things. On the whole, all the sessions were amazing, and I've definitely learned a lot, and I can answer any questions on mine too. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair Terrio.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Before I take questions from the board, I will ask Directors Cochran, Vice President Cochran, and Director Hernandez if they have any, if they want to supplement the reports in any way.
Well, thank you, Mike. I do have a couple comments. I certainly appreciate everyone's report. The first day, of course, I wasn't able to attend. The second day I did. And a couple takeaways that I'd come up with. They suggested that the executive committee of our board do the orientation of new members. And I know that Dennis and Amaret and Joe do a wonderful job, but it also a little flavor from the other board members would certainly help. And the other thing, the employment issue is really all over. Everyone commented about the lack of employment, and we're doing wonderful things with the junior colleges and colleges in our area to attract new people. But it said that to go back to your old applications, and some of those that we may have rejected for one reason or another, we may want to interview those applicants and possibly get them to change or resubmit. But anyway, that was kind of interesting. And yes, Lane County has a few Southern flags hanging around there, and they have their "Don't Tread on Me" flags too. I even see some in Southern Oregon. They're a different breed up there. But anyway, I certainly appreciate the ability to attend these meetings, and this virtual was really kind of nice that we had, instead of just Bert and I attending, or Sabrina and I and Bert, we had 8 members, I believe, attended totally. So anyway, thank you, President Mike.
Thank you, Vice President Cochran. Director Hernandez, have we exhausted everything, or do you want to throw something else in here?
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I have just a little comment I'd like to make. Like Director Cochran, I was unable to attend the complete first day's session, but at the second day's sessions I found very interesting, and my comments will be relative to the board responsibilities and functions section at the beginning of that day. One of the things I heard loud and clear was that in order for a board and a district to move forward successfully, there must be a very strong basis of trust. That is the result of transparency and accountability. Transparency as a result of communication, frequent meetings, active communication, willingness to learn both ways between the board and the CEO of a district and staff. Accountability, staff needs to do what they say they're going to do. They need to follow through, and the board needs to participate and be prepared to work. So these are the kinds of things that were stressed as essential elements for successful boards and district operations. Boards have things that they have to do. This was pointed out. Boards have things that they have to do, very specific things like budget approval. But boards also need to do things that move the district forward. And in order for, and those things are often driven by ideas from staff in conjunction with board ideals. And then the success of all of these elements, again, this depends on that trust, transparency, and accountability. And that's what I heard loud and clear during that session. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. Do any members of any of the other directors have questions for the directors who attended on the reports and the sessions? Hearing none. I agree with Director Cochran. It was nice to have this online format. It did allow more of us to participate, we'll fill some of your time with more reporting in the future if they continue to do this. Item number 13 is communications. I'll remind my colleagues that if you'd like a copy of any communication, please contact the District Secretary's office. Other than that, we are at the end of the agenda, and there are no further items to be presented. Thanks to everyone who joined us today, and I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. So moved, Mr. President. Second.
I hear a motion and a couple motions and a second. Is there any objection to adjourning? Then, with hearing no objection, we will adjourn today's meeting in memory of Jeff Kellogg, former procurement officer in the Ferry Division, Norma Mary Bianchi, mother of former Secretary of District former Secretary of the District Janet Tarantino, and Nina Louise Rescino, friend of Bridge Manager David Rivera. Please join me in a moment of silence. This concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors. The time is 11:49 a.m. Thanks, everybody. See you next month.